Now, the rest of the story.
All right, suspended up in the air is a good place to have an interview. The backdrop is the pretty well finished version of the combine right now, and we had a visitor. Well, I don't know if you're so much a visitor anymore, you're just kind of like another part of the operation, but we got Andrew Tucker here.
I haven't seen you for what, a week?
3 days.
3 days?
Count them. So, Andrew is here because he was actually flying out one of his drones, or one of the drones he has at his disposal, checking our crops. And this is the second or third week of September right now?
Starting the third week.
Going into the third week of September. And what are you noticing with the crops right now?
Well, on the soybean side of things, the beans are starting to senesce and starting to drop their leaves. So what I wanted to look at today is something I've been following for the past couple of weeks. We sprayed Miravis Neo. We had a video where you were riding the sprayer with me when we did this test. And it's very obvious right now exactly where we sprayed that. The beans are very healthy where we sprayed it. We've been checking plants, counting pods. We're seeing an increase in pods and bean fill in them. And the yield monitor is really going to be the key to tell us what the difference is out there. But there's definitely a visual difference.
And that's what most farmers are looking for. They want to see it visually that this product is actually doing something, and it is literally a night and day difference. Yep. So we got beans that are about 50% yellow and some that are just less than 10%. They're still fairly green and healthy yet,
right.
Which translates into better yield, better test weight, bush.
Yeah, you're going to have more weight. We're filling those beans, having bigger beans out there. More weight turns into more yield at the elevator. Some guys might be a little bit concerned thinking that their crop's going to be a little wetter at the end of the year, but essentially what we're doing is keeping the plants healthy and allowing them to properly senesce and properly finish their life cycle out without dropping leaves prematurely. We've got 4 days, there are carbon copy days coming up on the forecast next week.
Really?
It's supposed to be 81 for highs, sunny, perfect end of season weather to finish filling these crops. And what you're looking at out there, what we saw with the drone, is that you're going to have beans that are still capable of finishing out, filling those last couple pods, putting some weight on the plants, and the rest of the beans are done. Just kind of died prematurely, ended their life cycle early. And I'm hoping when we get to the yield monitor, we're going to see a 10 to 15 bushel advantage to what we sprayed out there.
All right, and especially with the corn around the country right now, you're seeing a lot of stuff that's still that deep green. You have some that is turning brown. You have some that's kind of yellow. Can you kind of explain what's going on late in the season with the crops right now, especially mainly with the corn, as far as what's the difference between finishing as far as it's just dead and actually maturing?
Well, the phrase has been used before. I didn't come up with it, but you want your corn to dry down and not die down. So natural drying down allows for good test weight at the end of the season. We don't want to see those plants really firing up from the bottom because it's basically having to rob from itself to finish filling that grain versus having the nutrients ready at the disposal for finishing the crop. And a lot of times that in itself is a 30 bushel advantage when you're able to let that happen. Fungicides is probably one of the key components to keeping a plant healthy, especially some of these more racehorse type hybrids. Keeping it healthy, allowing it to finish properly. We had so much rain this year that nitrogen's a big issue. We're seeing a lot of that corn that's the fluorescent yellow color out there and just doesn't have the nutrients it needs to finish up. Lots of tip back on the ears, several reasons that could be caused. One is compaction, another is nitrogen availability. Plant population can contribute to that. So this is a perfect time. I've been walking the fields with a lot of guys right now, just trying to figure out, hey, what could we do better next year? What could we do differently? And we got to keep in mind that this year we had above average moisture. It stayed cold and wet for a very long time this spring. It's probably one of the worst springs we had to get crops out of the ground. So we dealt with a lot of issues like that, but a lot of the things that we did on your farm, we went through and put some extra products with that second pass. We put some foliar nitrogen on. We did the fungicide, and a lot of that we did. We might not have to do next year, but we had to do this year because those plants were really struggling. We had to give them a boost.
Okay. I say, especially with the in-season fungicide, that's something that we, up until this year, this is the most we've ever done as far as fungicide ever. And going forward, what are some crops, or not crops, some products that we already know from this year that we will be using next year? The Moravis is pretty much a guarantee. I think Dad and Ryan both were put us on the list. And also that other starter additive, as opposed to the rocket seeds, which was just a seed applied product. What can you discuss the seed applied, or the starter additive that you were telling me about earlier?
So we ran a 624-6 liquid starter on the corn this year. Great product. You know, we're just basically trying to pop that seed up out of the ground and have the nutrients right there. We're not planning on feeding it long term with that. You know, we're using usually about 4 gallons to the acre. We did rocket seeds, which is a graph and talc replacement this year, that also had a growth promoter in there to really help enhance. As soon as that seed started getting the first radical root out, it fed it right away and helped promote further growth. I still think we saw a pretty good difference out there when we looked at the crops that had it and that didn't have it. But there are some similar products to that we can put right in the liquid starter. I was looking at some pictures today of some roots that were dug up, and a couple products that we'll be talking about next year that will be available are going to really have this enhanced root growth. Again, it all comes back to making sure the nutrients are there in the plant at the end of the year, which in your case, most of your corn looks very healthy right now. I don't see a lot of dying from the bottom up yet. It's finishing really nicely. It's dented evenly. We had good pollination, so I'm pretty excited with crops out here, what we're going to see on the yield monitor.
We're already expecting to have to fight Andrew for the combine because he wants to run the combine.
I definitely want to be in there and watching the yield monitor on a lot of this stuff. We have a lot of trials, and that's how we learn. That's how we get better, is keep doing trials, learn from what doesn't work, and take what does work and keep going with it.
All right. Now, to finish up, we're trying to finish making hay. And I've mentioned a couple times in the past that you did put an additive, or you did spray a fertilizer on our third cutting regrowth, our third crop coming up. And could you talk about that a little bit? Because as everybody is trying to make as much hay as they can, because hay is kind of a valuable commodity right now also. And I've had a couple people ask what we all put on back in, was it July, to really get that crop to respond, because the yield response was definitely there. Yeah.
Radiate's the main product we had in there. It's a growth promoter. It gives you cellular elongation, and it's basically a cytokinin protein that once a plant sees that, it's feeding proteins to these plants to help them with the cell elongation, helps them get growth, especially under stressful conditions. So where that plant might say, okay, I really don't have as much water, it's really hot outside, we just want to slow down, that product helps the plant to not slow down. It minimizes the stress and keeps it growing. So we had that out there. One thing we were talking about was just nitrogen, you know, more of the grassy hay that you have out there. And you saw after we wide dropped, wherever the wide drops went, I mean, I
was asking about doing that next year. We just go over everything with the wide drops.
Everything with the wide drop, but we were just talking before we turned the camera on about possibly taking some stream bars or something with a sprayer and actually stream dropping nitrogen like we do on wheat and even oats. And
now, what would be the advantage of using the stream bars over broadcasting fertilizer? Because we've talked about doing both, and going into next year, I'm definitely interested in at least like trying something out, trying to see how we can get more tonnage to the acre.
I think it all depends on how much rain we're going to get. If you broadcast urea down and put agrotane type product, some sort of a stabilizer on it, then it'll hold it there and not allow it to evaporate before the rain comes. And if you get a good shot of rain on that, gets it into the ground. I think it works just fine. The stream bars advantage with using UAN or a liquid nitrogen product. It might be available a little faster to those plants. You might see a little bit more instant result.
Because what are
those things we're going to have to do trials on.
We will definitely be leaving test passes or test strips, but the goal is to try to get the second crop to yield just as good as first crop, ideally. Not necessarily always going to happen, depends on the weather. So
going to need rain, that's the big thing. And And the Radiate, we got a lot of dairies using that now, spraying their hay with Radiate. Insecticide was a big thing this year. We did have some bug pressure about the middle of the year,
Yeah.
where the high managed hay got insecticide. And fungicide. You know what we're doing with the beans and the corn, it works on hay too. Keeping and retaining those bottom leaves of the plant and making sure that we don't have any of those leaf diseases in the alfalfa. That gives you the tonnage at the end.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew, for visiting us up in the air. So
Yeah.
until next time, we're going to be seeing a lot of Andrew going forward here, because now that we're we're not really sliding to the finish, but the crop we could be harvesting here probably 4 weeks, middle of October, the way it's looking, and no doubt we'll be seeing lots of Andrew. So
Got to get the weigh wagon out here, make sure everything's calibrated right. And
that's right, because this is one of Andrew's big successes with us. He actually got us to put a yield monitor and an ag leader monitor in our combine. That was numero uno, one of the bigger helps that really helped us early on when we started working with you. Because if you don't know what the crop's yielding, you don't know what parts of the field needs the attention.
right.
So we got to end this, otherwise we're going to start another video. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care, take it easy, keep in touch. Bye. All right, and first and foremost, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, look at all those tire tracks in that corn. That is a product of Y dropping our corn. Andrew is the one that did it. He is his own biggest critic, and I'm not mad. None of us are. He was hired to do this Y dropping, and we just shown that it's a little bit of a challenge to Y drop in some of our contours, but I'm still really excited to see how it yields. So what this last few pictures are actually trying to show is the Maravis, Neo, and Coron trial that we did on our soybeans mainly. You can see along the field road those darker strips of green of soybeans on the headlands here is a direct result of spraying that trial that Andrew ended up showing up, and well, actually he asked us if we wanted to try it. Right in the center of the picture here, you can see the upper side of the strip is clearly a darker green, healthier. The lower side of the strip is definitely turning yellow. It's already losing its leaves, and as far as any potential yield, gaining any more yield is pretty much out the door. This is exactly why, or one of the main reasons why we like having Andrew around. He's doing exactly what we want him to do. He's encouraging us to try different products and do different trials, and once again, you can see that dark green strip that goes right around the field, right around the contour, and it's going to show on the yield monitor when we go to harvest this fall. I'm looking forward to it. We got a lot of different trials that we had tried. You can look at our fields compared to the neighbors. Different maturities, different health of the plants. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm cautiously excited going into this fall, and really see how our yields end up turning out. For how miserable we were planting this spring, and to have our crops look as nice as they do, I can't help but feel a little excited for fall.